Related to logging time at higher levels like that, what would you recommend for when we're logging time against a quote, for instance, where we're just evaluating a new project that might be coming in or might not turn into a project, but we want to log that time against that particular quote?
So how would you create that? Like, would the quote be, would you intend to have, how's it done today, actually?
So today in BQE, a quote is really just a project.
Okay.
And just like all of our other projects, everyone just has one high level task that they enter all of their time under and just a description of what they did. And
Okay.
then when it becomes a project, we update the ID to change from the quote number to the actual project number. We change the type from a marketing or quote type to an actual engineering or production or fixed price or time and material job.
Okay. So my recommendation for that is when you're logging, like when it's just in a quoting phase, that I would have it be separate. Again, we have that work type attribute. So if it's just quote sales phase that you're logging time against, but it's not billable time, maybe at some point it will become billable. I think we talked about this vaguely, where that would live in a totally different space maybe. And you would be, as you're doing stuff against that, or we keep it out of having a financial project, you can log time against it, but when it comes to actually pulling in this type of thing, like if you just are saying logged time, when it converts to a project that's kicking off, you can then set up the financial project. So you can either have a work type that, here, let me come here. In your workflow, you put the status that it is like quote in sales, right? And that you're like, this is just like there are a lot of different ways to approach it. My brain is thinking of all of the ways at the same time. So I'm trying to slow myself down. You can either do, we did that work type attribute and then filter it out. If you don't want that to go against billing, that's going to be part of that adjustment where it's got a work type attribute to it. So that time type, and you say it's quote in sales, so that then the person who is, let me go back to that timesheet, who's say in this report, anything that has the time type quote in sales, they would zero it out for billable. You could log all that time against it. So that's one way. I don't think that's like an ideal way to do that because it has this manual effort that could get cumbersome and annoying for an individual to have to zero out. The other way would be you've got that project item, it's in a quoting phase, or like not even, it lives in wherever the project would live. So if that's that master space, it's in there, and it's not going to have, are you going to do a WBS on it? Like, are you breaking it down?
Right. So that's typically the quoting process usually involves putting together that WBS that will be used for the actual project.
Yeah.
And
So
generating.
you can create it, you can have all of it existent, you can log time against it, but when you're doing your projects here, like it doesn't convert to being a financially tracked project until you set it up, until it converts to, all right, we've kicked this off. So that's another way where you build it out as is, and it lives in the spaces that it's going to live in, and all of the work is broken down in it, and you're logging your quoting time against it. Financially wise, you can choose to, like, it's not until it goes from quoting to like signed and we're doing it, does then now we go and create the project and the filter for that project. And now you'd have your financial tracker. You'd still be able to see all of the logged time against it in like a timesheet, but it wouldn't, you wouldn't necessarily have to drive it to any financial aspect until it transitions to being that. And then you would create the project for it.
So when we are logging time and looking reports on quotes, we are typically interested in what is the equivalent billable time, billable cost that has been spent against that quote.
Mm-hmm. So then once wait, say that one more time. I just want to make sure that
So whatever billing rate would be applied to this quote once it becomes a project, we typically are wanting to see, okay, how much billable time or what will be billable time has been spent against that project and see what has been the cost.
So what you can do with that is once you create a project that gets linked to an account, we'll apply those billing rates and those financial rates when you set it up here. So on the Jira side, you're just logging time. It's not, at that point, it doesn't do anything besides log, okay, you spent 2 hours doing quoting on this. When you when internally, like, you know, team knows, okay, we've now signed this, and you then put it into a project, by default, any of that logged time will get converted to a financial piece. So you would then be able to see, okay, we're kicking off this project, and right now we know everything that had gone against it. We put 11 hours of time and the financial for the quoting. You could spin up a project that is just for tracking that quoting. This is a third way to do it. As far as actually, I'm in here and I'm logging time and I choose the attribute quote pre-sales, like, that's just a way to filter it down. When you apply it into a project, that's when your account rates and your billing rates and everything get put into it. So then you could see, okay, what did it turn into? How much did this take? Even if it's closed won or closed loss, you could still pull up a project to see that financial breakdown of it, if that's interesting. If you don't care in it, like, okay, we lost it, we're not doing it, move on. But you could still be able to filter that and pull it into a financial project or in Tempo and see that breakdown. This time type is one way to do it. The other way, which is like a very siloed way, is quoted or quoting projects are going to live somewhere else entirely and not in the spaces. The challenge with that is then when it needs to transition to kickoff, the work going across all of teams, firmware, hardware, software, etc., will now need to be moved, and there's a process to that. So my recommendation would be, you have a project, you do your WBS on it, everything that's logged on it until it becomes like a full financial based project will just be your quote pre-sales. And then when it kicks off a financial, if quote pre-sales goes into the invoicing amount, they can leave them as billable, but you'd be able to see how much time and the financial piece to that is billable versus non-billable. So there are different ways to view it, as long as the time gets logged, deciding when do we set it up as where we can see this piece, the budgeting, see the budgeting and the breakdown and the actual cost. That's as soon as you build something like this and apply those rates, that's when all of that time that's logged actually becomes a financial number. Otherwise, it's just logged time. It's there and you can just convert it.